have you heard about, or do you know of a gentleman named Daniel Kahneman? You heard this name before, gentlemen?
Only from you.
That's not true. It's not true. The author, amongst other things, the author of Thinking Fast and Slow, a beautiful book that changed my mind, or opened my mind. I think about the way people make decisions, about a bunch of cognitive biases that are out there, like sort of just flaws in our brains in the way we make decisions, the narrative fallacy. So, getting caught up in an idea and sort of overlooking data just because it has a compelling story. Confirmation bias is a big one, where we seek out information that validates an already existing belief, and we don't necessarily look for contrarian data. Most importantly, we don't even seek it out. We ignore it altogether. It is in that spirit, the spirit of Daniel Kahneman and confirmation bias, in which he offers this idea. Mr. Thomas Sosnoff, he's busy, barely paying attention here. It is in that spirit. It is in that spirit. He offers this idea of mitigating against confirmation bias. And we live in a world of algorithms that are constantly feeding us stuff we already believe. The mitigation technique, or one, is called devil's advocate. Just find somebody with an opposing opinion, or find somebody to present contrarian evidence, contrarian narratives, and see if it changed your mind. And so it is in that spirit we've created this segment, Hear Me Out, just so people, the crazy people in the comments, understand the whole purpose and point of this segment. So I will do this. I want to bring to you two financial influencers that I think it's very unlikely that you've interacted with their work over the last couple of weeks. Okay. And I think it's very likely that they have points of view that are going to run counter to your own. And it is in that spirit that I'd like to see you react to these set of ideas. You cool with this?
I'm totally cool with it. Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to start with my man, Urban Cowboy. This gentleman's name is Michael Cow, brilliant guy, portfolio manager. I'm going to read some of his thoughts. This comes from just a few days ago. As I am Chinese by descent, I get the whole angle of Chinese national pride in being able to eat bitterness and endure hardship. But the math is the math. When your entire economy is based upon keeping the runaway assembly line humming, not because of economic profit or demand, but because there is no other way to keep the masses employed, it really behooves you to find a way to make good with the U.S. consumer that buys 35% of global consumption. Talking with my retailer CEO friends, permanent decisions to relocate supply chains out of China are being made with every day that this tariff war goes on. So yeah, the U.S. is beholden to 4-year election cycles, yada, yada. But China is at risk of secular economic collapse if the tariff war even goes on for 1 year. Trump 2.0 needs to provide a face-saving exit strategy for China, and Xi needs to take it. That was in response to a report that 16 million export jobs in China are at risk. I'll pause for a minute and get your reaction to this idea that it's not that the U.S. side needs the face-saving exit strategy, that it is in fact just as much, if not more, China and Xi.
I mean, I don't know who this guy is. He's not the guy on CNBC, is it?
No, it's a different guy. And he's a really brilliant guy. I really respect his work.
Yeah,
well, say that first, before you say whatever you're about to say.
That's your opinion. I have a rule. Maybe it's a little bit in my blood, but you don't negotiate with terrorists. I hate that guy. What he just wrote. I would never. That would not be my approach. I am a compromiser. I'm a negotiator. I like to compromise by nature. But you don't negotiate.
Everybody wants to compromise by nature. And
not everybody.
What I've been saying.
Some people are hardline. I'm not a hardline person, but in this case, because it's a fight that was picked, I wouldn't negotiate if I was. I mean, I would not take that approach. If I don't know who this guy is, and I don't know where he's coming from, but if I'm China, like, first of all, that would not be my advice, and that would not be something I say. I actually really don't like that approach. That's all I have. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to get into a big other. That would not be how I would approach things.
Fair enough. All right, this one, I thought you'd go harder in the paint on that one. I'm surprised. I'm going to give you this one. I think you'll have more of a reaction on this one. Again, this is in the spirit of Daniel Kahneman's Devil's Advocate.
Yeah.
All right, this is from Brent Johnson of at Santiago Capital.
I don't
History
know him either.
rare.
Just so you know, I do not know who that is.
Fair enough. History. He came on the network on my show once before. It was a really popular episode. Dollar
Brent
Milkshake
Johnson
Theory guy.
Okay.
Brent Johnson.
Okay.
A history rarely gives advance notice. He wrote this April 17th, by the way. History rarely gives advance notice that it is laying down a marker. Empires do not typically hold press conferences when they change the rules, and superpowers do not typically send warnings before they weaponize the system they built. And yet, America is telling the world exactly what is coming. This is not the chaos of decline. This is not the flailing of a fading empire. This is the world's dominant power consolidating its control unapologetically, aggressively, and with the full weight of its economic engine behind it. And the playbook is not subtle. The Trump administration has thrown out the ivory tower frameworks of globalization, free trade, and rules-based corporate cooperation and replaced them with something far older, simpler, and more ruthless. Realpolitik and statecraft backed by financial warfare. Tariffs are not policy details, they are pressure points. Supply chains are not economic abstractions, they are leverage. And foreign governments and multinational CEOs are not partners, they are counterparties in a zero-sum contest for control. Access to the American market, the largest, wealthiest, and most consumption-driven in human history, is no longer free. It will come with a price. But power moves like this do not come without consequences. Global capital is shifting, and markets are trembling. Foreign holders of U.S. assets lulled for decades by predictability and privilege are discovering what the U.S. giveth, the U.S. can taketh away. This is not about trade policy. It's not about tariffs. It's about power. And who has it, who does not, and what happens when the world's largest economy decides to stop pretending otherwise. Those pretty powerful words from a contrarian standpoint to opinions that you had expressed. And I was curious to get your reaction to those words.
Well, that's the first time I've heard that, and it's really well written. I don't really know if he's making a statement. I mean, he's explaining what he sees. I don't know if he's making a statement about, what he thinks. I mean, he's basically just giving you his view of what's happening. I don't really know that there's anything else in there. Like I mean, are you asking me? Is your question?
I would agree. I was just curious to get your reaction on it. I think of all the things that I've read and encountered, and I try to read a lot of this stuff. I know you try to maybe not do that on purpose.
Yeah. I mean, if you're asking me if it's well written, sure, it's well written. I mean,
well, my thought was I thought he did a really good job of just explaining what is, and I find it's really hard to have conversations about what's happening without sort of the emotional aspect. And I think Brent Johnson is one of these people who's doing a pretty decent job of laying out the incentives and the black and white of what's happening without the emotional overlay.
Yeah, there's a problem with it, Vic. And the problem with that is that there's in my opinion, there's a problem with it. And the problem is that you're giving significantly more credit for this being an intellectual play than I think it really is. So that's my 2 cents. It doesn't mean anything. It's just my 2 cents. Like I think he's making it sound like it's much more. He's articulating a plan that I don't think was the plan, but he said it really nice. I have no issue with it. I mean, that's what he believes. I think it was more of a hodgepodge of ideas thrown together, and not nearly as well thought out. But listen, I understand. That might be the case. I mean,
it might be. Yeah, I have no idea.
Knows? I mean,
I like what he wrote in the sense that he explained what's happening, but I think he gave more credit to the people behind
than you would have given, sure,
than is deserved.
Fair enough. I thought you were going to get real charged up on this one, and you were super, super moderate And it was like, I love it. By the way,
what did you think? I have a question.
He's come over to the
Turning a
bad
new
side a
leaf.
little bit.
What did you think I was going to get charged up on? I'm just curious what you think I was going to get charged up on.
I think both takes. I thought you'd be supercharged on the first one.
Well, the first one is bothersome. The first one's bothersome because I am a you don't negotiate with terrorist people person, and you don't negotiate with bullies. On the second one, listen, I just think he gave him more credit, and I don't think that was actually what happened, but it's okay.
Do you think let me ask you this question. Do you think there's a possibility, what's the best case scenario you see unfolding over the next 6 to 12 months? What's the best case scenario you see?
That it's good and better like other things in life, and sometimes you don't get to the path that you don't get to the end result of taking the path that you wanted to take or you think is preferred, but we get there. You said it as the U.S. is too big to fail kind of thing. So that's the best case scenario, in my opinion, Victor. And I think that's what I've been trying to say all along.
I mean, if you want the ultimate best case scenario, it's that we invoke the 25th Amendment. If you want,
is that what you wanted, Vic? Is that what you want? You see, I had him moderate. I had him right in the middle there. Well, that's well said. It's not the way I would say it or the way I view it, but that was nicely said.
Best case scenario. Had to do it. The absolute best case scenario is we just invoke the 25th Amendment. The second base.
I knew if I dug deep enough, you'd give me a jewel here, Tom.
The second best case scenario is that in the next round of midterm elections, there's more of a balance of power, so that there's some more checks and balances. I think that's important. But the reality is that, just like Tony just said, I've said all along, the U.S. and I had a same discussion with Dylan yesterday. The U.S. is too big to fail, and I really believe that. And regardless of policy, unless somebody does something, there is the potential for something so ridiculous, so stupid that we don't recover from it. But that would be more like, just to give you an example, like an idiot nuclear, decision or something like that. If it comes down to tariffs or economic policy, whether it's interest rates or taxes or tariffs or any of that kind of stuff, I believe that the market will find an acceptable level, and everything will continue to grow in a positive fashion. Meaning that the market will settle in with whatever it believes. Like, let's just say this is the level right here, 5,600, just as an example. I think that barring anything catastrophic, which would be something that nobody could predict. But if you take a look at what we have right now, I think that you've seen the worst and you probably haven't seen the best. So I think the market will absorb everything, because it always does. It adjusts pricing. It resets targets, and that's it. And I think, we'll be range bound for a while until people get comfortable with it. As soon as you see volatility start to contract at a more significant pace, I think we're going to be, I think it'll be, not going to say clear sailing, but I think clearer. Most of the
now you're becoming a volatility trader. I like it.
Most of the danger will be gone. There will still be social and political danger. There'll still be things that bother lots of people, but the reality is,
as there are every day.
Yeah. But I think the reality of it is that we won't be having these same conversations, and things will normalize somewhat. And I think
time heals all wounds.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I think that's how everybody feels at 5,600.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a long, drawn-out negotiation, and I think we could just as easily be having the same types of conversations we had at 4,900. And we had this conversation on my show yesterday. At moments when the distribution widens out, it feels like people forget that the distribution's widened, but that doesn't mean you go to the end of the distribution. And I feel like 3 weeks ago, I saw a lot of people going to the very end of the left side of the tail and telling stories, equivalent to the 1930s and the Great Depression. And look, I'm not saying we can't trip a credit event. I'm just saying that it probably behooves a lot of people that are playing 30 and 45-day cycles to remember that there's a lot of room inside that distribution curve. And that the narrative fallacy brings us, it's very compelling to go straight to the left side of the tail or the right side of the tail in Bitcoin's case, but there's a lot of room inside the distribution.
I've been having traded and lived through a lot of crises. I don't feel the same way right now that I felt in 2008, 2009. I don't feel the same way that I felt in 1987 or 89, or different points in
You're also a different person too.
Yeah, I know, I understand, but I'm just saying I don't, fear is fear. Like,
but 40 years or 30 years of maturity and being in a different place in life, looking at things
I got that
differently than being a young.
But I'm just saying, Vic, I just feel like we're I liked what you brought to the table today as a discussion, because I think those are interesting points of view. I mean, but they're completely random to me.
Next week, can we talk about Bill Belichick, please?
Yeah.
You think there's some
two old guys like Tom and I would like to talk
opinion.
about Bill Belichick, please, if we could.
I don't know
know your guys' opinion on that.
You're going to get in more trouble.
There's no real control. I'm not playing devil's advocate on that one. I don't think you're going to.
No, I'm one and done. I can't afford to lose half again. It took me over 10 years to get back from that debacle. So God gave me two eyes, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use my eyes. You on the other hand over there.
Explain how life works.
And Victor over there. Maybe you guys might.
Explain how life works. You can't win in that case.
That's
can't win.
True.